Sleepwalking is often caused by an unusual amount of stress, sleep deprivation, medication, or fever. Those that are affected by it usually have no recollection of actions they've taken while sleepwalking, and sometimes this includes crimes that they only become aware of once they wake up. Number 5. In February of 1879, a man by the surname of Fane, accompanied by a friend, entered the Veranda Hotel in Kentucky. It was snowing outside and both men were relieved to be in the warm lobby of the hotel, where they sat down to rest. Fane hadn't had much sleep since his children were sick at home and he'd been taking care of them. It didn't take long for the two men to relax in the lobby and both drifted off to sleep, helped by the dim lighting of the hotel. Fane's friend was the first to awaken and he decided to book a room with 2 beds where they could sleep for the night. He tried to wake Fane, but as much as he tried, he couldn't get him to wake up. He proceeded to the reception desk where he booked a room and asked the receptionist to wake Fane up so they could retire to the room. He too tried to awaken Fane, but without success, remarking to Fane's friend that he thought the man might be dead. The friend told him not to be silly and to get on with it, prompting him to try again. The receptionist started trying to shake Fane as hard as he could, finally waking him up. Fane asked him what he wanted, and the man said that he needed to go to bed, but Fane refused and told him to leave him alone and go away. The receptionist replied that it was getting late and that he needed to close up for the night, grabbing Fane by his coat and lifting him out of his seat. Fane reached to his side and drew a pistol, causing an onlooker in the hotel to yell at him not to shoot. Fane appeared to not hear him and fired a shot at the receptionist. Realizing what was happening, the receptionist started to wrestle with Fane to stop him from firing another round, but he was unsuccessful and Fane shot him twice more. Fane let out a cry of "Howie" and ran out of the hotel and into the street while still holding the firearm. Once outside, he shoved the gun into a stranger's hand and asked him to defend him since he just shot someone, although he had no idea who it was that he had fired at. The receptionist would pass away from the gunshots and Fane was taken into custody. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison on charges of manslaughter, but on appeal, the conviction was overturned when he introduced evidence proving that he often became violent when woken up, and that he didn't know where he was or what he was doing when he was in such a state. Number 4. In 1884, at 35 years of age, Robert Ledru was a foremost detective in Paris. He'd become well known for his ability to catch murderers, anarchists, and for breaking up cults that practiced black magic. He was also the leader of a team who'd caught a political rebel group who had plans to overthrow the French government. 3 years later, he was struggling to close cases, and so was tasked with solving a crime where a group of sailors had gone missing. He traveled to Normandy by boat and decided that he would get to bed early. When he woke up the following morning, he noticed that his socks and shoes were wet, which he found strange, but he got dressed and set out to the police station. At the station, he was told that his assignment had been changed since there'd been a murder during the night where a well-known shop owner, André Monet, was found killed from a single shot wound to the chest. He headed to the shore where the man had been found and immediately noticed a set of footprints that led away from the crime scene. Witnesses stated that he suddenly seemed troubled, and he noted that the footprints seemed familiar to him, as if he'd seen them before. Plaster casts were made of the prints, and Ledru sat on the beach for hours looking at the casts. Fellow policemen described him as being like a statue, oblivious to the hot sun and the tide that was rolling in. Eventually, he got up and approached the police chief, saying that he had solved the crime and that he could stop the investigation. He stayed in his room until the following day. When he presented the bullet that had killed Monet, he compared it to his own ammunition, and it was announced that he was in fact the one who had ended Monet's life, even though he didn't remember doing it. The plaster casts perfectly matched his feet, since he was missing one of his big toes. Ledru maintained that he'd been sleepwalking during the crime, and while incarcerated, police conducted an experiment. Ledru was given a loaded gun with blank cartridges to keep under his pillow. While asleep, he got out of bed, drew the gun, and fired at one of the prison guards, proving that he was a sleepwalker. Ledru was not sent to prison, but spent the rest of his life in guarded isolation on a farm outside of Paris. Number 3. In Florida, 22-year-old Erin Rice had been arrested for shoplifting. While she was being detained, she managed to slip free from a deputy and made her escape despite canine units and a helicopter giving chase. Meanwhile, Carol Rausch, an elderly lady of 73, was asleep in her and her husband James's house not too far from where Rice had fled from police. James had left the house early that morning and was out golfing. When Carol woke up and made her way to the kitchen, she was shocked to find Rice in the house wearing James's pajamas. She immediately assumed that her husband was having an affair with a younger woman, but Rice explained that she suffered from severe sleepwalking and she didn't know how she got there. Carol sympathized with her and gave her a bowl of cereal to eat, later reporting that Rice repeatedly fell asleep while at the table. When James returned, Carol confronted him with Rice, and he swore that he'd never seen the woman before in his life. The couple, not knowing that Rice was a fugitive, drove her to her house, which was less than a mile away. Later, they discovered that Rice had done her laundry while Carol slept when they found some of her underwear in their washing machine. She'd also taken a nap in their guest bedroom, and so they decided to contact police, who went to Rice's home, where she was arrested while trying to escape by hiding on the floor of a friend, John Wiley's car. She was arrested on several charges, including giving a false name, burglary, and petty theft. Number 2. Ivy Cogden lived in Melbourne in 1950 and was a nervous woman who often suffered from night terrors. Her affliction on one occasion caused her to believe that her house had suddenly been infested with spiders and that they were attacking her daughter, Pat. She ran into Pat's room and attempted to brush the spiders off, only to realize when she woke up they were not real. She would later realize that the dream was the result of her hearing about someone who kept spiders in their house as pets, which terrified her. Then on August 11th of the same year, her condition would escalate to a new level. Ivy's husband would be out for the night, and he suggested that she go and see a movie. She agreed, but after checking the newspaper listings, she couldn't find one to her liking, and she decided to stay home and have an early night instead. During the night, she heard her daughter screaming and ran into her bedroom to see what was wrong. When she opened the door, she saw Pat was being attacked by a group of Korean soldiers, and she hurriedly looked for a weapon to fend them off, eventually finding an axe in the house. In a panic, she re-entered the daughter's bedroom and started swinging the axe at the soldiers, believing she was protecting her daughter. Instead, she'd unknowingly brought the axe down on her daughter and killed her, only realizing what she'd done the next morning when Pat was found with the axe still lying next to her. Ivy was distraught and admitted that she must have committed the crime while she was having a nightmare, describing her dream to police. Several doctors who were treating Ivy at the time testified that she was indeed a sleepwalker who'd ventured out of the house while asleep on several occasions, and that she wouldn't have known what she was doing while wielding the axe. She was found not guilty of manslaughter, as the start of the Korean War was seen as a factor that played into her psyche, causing her to have sleepwalking nightmares that ended her daughter's life. Number 1. Willis Bashirs, 29 years of age, was a U.S. Staff Sergeant from Michigan. On New Year's Eve of 1960, while he was stationed in the UK, he spent the day celebrating by drinking beer and vodka. He didn't have much to eat during the day and had just had some dental work done. During the day, he met up with a couple, a friend, Jean Constable, and her boyfriend, David Salt, at a bar at the Bell Hotel. The three of them spent some time at the bar drinking and talking and eventually decided to head off to Bashirs' apartment. Constable and Salt made use of Bashirs' bedroom, and he decided to take his mattress to the fireplace, where he continued drinking on his own. At some point, Constable and Salt joined him by the fire, and the three fell asleep after having more to drink. At some point during the night, Salt woke up and decided that he would head home. Bashirs wished him farewell and went back to sleep. At around 1 a.m., Bashirs woke up to the sensation of someone clawing at his face and mouth. And when he finally managed to come to, he found himself sitting on top of Constable and realized that she wasn't breathing and that he had his hands around her throat. In a state of panic, he cut her hair and burned it, believing that she couldn't be identified without it. He washed the body, dressed her, and left her in his spare bedroom. When he woke up later that morning, he thought that he'd had a nightmare, but realized when he opened the guest bedroom door that it was all too real. He attempted to destroy any evidence that he could, burning his coat and removing her jewelry, which he then disposed of. The following day, he wrapped Constable's body in a blanket and left her in a ditch in a rural area. a truck driver would discover the body on January 3rd. Police were told that Bashirs had spent the day with the couple and he was promptly arrested. He confessed to what he had done, but stated that he had no recollection of the events. He was found not guilty by a jury after less than 3 hours of deliberation. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future videos. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next upload.